What's up, everybody, and welcome to the 18th episode of the Control Freak Podcast. I am your host, Alex Blackard, or @LessAlex on Twitter. You should go follow me there. The Control Freak Podcast is the only Magic the Gathering podcast devoted to all things Control in Modern. And as always, the podcast is proudly sponsored by Team Solitary Pro. They help me produce the podcast, and they allow me to play in a lot of awesome events. I will have all of their information linked below, but a huge thanks to them. Today's episode is all about why you should not play Blue-White Control in the Modern format. I know, this is blasphemous coming from me, but I have good reason to believe that right now, for the time being, you should not be playing Blue-White Control in Modern. I kind of teased on Twitter that this is going to be a bit of a different episode, big time. There is a deck, however, that I do believe that we should be pivoting to, and I will get into that deck sooner than you know it. Of course, we did have a awesome new set, Throne of Eldraine, the pre-release just happened, and I hope everybody had an awesome pre-release. I know pre-release is always a very fun time for me, but yeah, there are some cards in that set that I do believe will slot into the Blue-White Control decks and Blue-White Stoneblade. But right now, if you're playing Blue-White Control, traditional Blue-White Control in Modern, I think we should try and pivot away at the very, very least, or very most, rather, I guess you could say. You should be playing Stoneblade. Stoneblade is a deck right now that I know, this is blasphemous because I just said how Stoneblade wasn't so hot, but the very own, Twitter's very own Blue-White community player, he's very well known on Twitter and on Moto, Mick Winsauce. He believes that we should not be playing Blue-White Control either. He's a very prominent Blue-White Control player, like I said, on the interwebs. But he took the Blue-White Control deck playing one Terminus and one Mystic Sanctuary. That's the new card from Throne of Eldraine to a 4-1 finish in a league. And he said he liked the deck overall, but at the end of the day, he would rather be playing Stoneforge Mystics and equipments. So Stoneblade, of course, very, very well positioned if you're going to go down the blue-white lane. Now, a lot of folks are trying Ojutai in the main deck of not only Stoneblade, but also Blue-White Control as a finisher. Very, very good with Teferi Time Raveler. So Teferi Time Raveler, of course, makes to where your opponents can't interact, and you're always going to get in for that 5 damage and get that Anticipate ability. So if you're going to try to play Blue-White Stoneblade or Blue-White Control, I personally like it in Control as a finisher a little bit more than in, now, say a Stoneblade style deck. But I know probably an amazing sword bearer and absolutely insane if you can get a Batterskull on it. But at the end of the day, I think that you want to play that in a Blue-White Control shell. But again, I don't really think Blue-White Control is very well positioned. We do have a couple lists here. The Modern Challenge was on the 21st and going on today, so we don't yet have the results in from today's Modern Challenge. Remember, I do record these the Sunday before they release, so we are in the midst of a Modern Challenge right now. But I will I have checked out the lists from last week. Of course, no Throne of Eldraine in these lists, but we can kind of piece together some cards that would slot in. And again, don't forget, I haven't forgot, there is a list, there is a deck, there is an archetype that I believe that we should be pivoting to that in a way it's not a control deck. It is a blue-white deck, though. Anyways, let's take a look at this Modern Challenge. I want to go through some of the top decks, and you'll start to see a theme with some of these decks. and some of the lists some of the cards that these lists are playing. So Warrior 1000, this is the Modern Challenge. Okay, this is the Modern Challenge that was on the 21st. Warrior 1000 played Urza. So, this is the deck that plays Urza Lord High Artificer, Goblin Engineer, Whir of Invention, of course, and then plays the Sword of the Meek, Thopter Foundry combo, make an infinite amount of Thopters, and then kill your opponent. Or it can just beat down with a giant construct token that you generate from Urza. So that is one. Now in second place, this is the spicy of spicy. This is Canister, or Piotr Golgowski. He is a MPL member. He is a very good deck designer. He actually helped design the Urza deck that is very popular right now, and that actually ended up taking this down. But he played an Urza deck, but it wasn't Urza. He is moving over to Paradoxical Outcome. Paradoxical Outcome is a card that sees play in Vintage. Are any, alarm bells going off? A card that sees play in Vintage, a card that has a deck built around it in Vintage, is showing up in Modern. To me, this is huge red flag. This is huge sirens going off, because this is a card that generates so much advantage when you cast it. I'm sure you all know, but for those that don't, Paradoxical Outcome is a 4-mana, 3 and a colorless and a blue instant that you return any number of target non-land, non-token permanents you control to their owner's hand, draw a card for each returned in this way. So basically this deck wants to play Arcum's Astrolabes, Engineered Explosives, Everflowing Chalices, Ichor Wellsprings, Mishra's Baubles, Mox Amber even, and Mox Opals. So a bunch of 0s, 1s, and 2s. And then bounce them back to the hand, draw a bunch of cards, and then replay them for free. You can, of course, play your Engineered Explosives for 0. You can play your Everflowing Chalices for 0. You bounce them back to your hand. His win condition, again, you can make a giant construct from Urza, or you can do Grinding Station. Grinding Station, some of you might be like, what in the world is Grinding Station, Alex? I've never heard of this card. Or, maybe you have. But for those that haven't, Grinding Station is a 2-mana artifact that is an uncommon. You tap it, sacrifice an artifact. Target player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into their graveyard. Whenever an artifact comes into play, you untap it. So you see where I'm going with this. You can, of course, tap sack, cast a 0, untap it, tap sack. Again, if you have Saheeli or Sai on the battlefield, I mean, you're going infinite. You're going infinite and you're killing them. This is, spoiler alert, if you haven't noticed me talking about this deck and the excitement in my voice, this is the deck that I believe you should be picking up. Now, why? Why, Alex? Why would I ever want this honest, good control mage want to play this degenerate combo deck? I have an answer. It draws so many cards. Paradoxical Outcome draws you so many cards. I played this a bit today, and holy smokes, I've been playing it on Moto. I've been playing it in paper a little bit. It's insane. You draw 10 cards, then you draw a bunch of cards, then you play out all your spells, you generate a bunch of tokens, then you draw into the second copy of Paradoxical Outcome. It is a little light, which is kind of ironic. It is a little weak to control, because control can, of course, we can counter it. We can counter the Urza. We can counter the Paradoxical Outcome. So there is kind of that ironic, I'm telling you to switch to a deck from a deck that has a great matchup to the deck that I'm suggesting to you to switch to. But I really do think that this deck It's insane. And Canister, Piotr Gilgowski, was streaming it yesterday, I believe, and has already made changes to it based on the new cards from Throne of Eldraine. Of course, Imri, the card from the new card from Throne of Eldraine, the 3-mana legendary creature, 2 colorless and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, you self-mill 4. It has basically affinity for artifacts, so it will almost always cost 1 to cast, and then you can tap it to give target artifact in your graveyard flashback, essentially. You get to cast target artifact in your graveyard as though it were in your hand. So, yeah, I mean, the deck's insane. He's now playing 2 of those. He's playing... Cut the Serum Visions completely. And he's playing 2 of the Witch's Well, which is a very niche card, but adds to the fire of this beast of a deck. It's a new card from Throne of Eldraine, 1 blue. It is 1 blue that... So Witch's Well is 1 blue for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, you scry 2, and then you can tap blue and 3 colorless to draw 2 cards, which when you're comboing off, I mean, it's just insane. You get to keep going, basically. And I definitely understand the fact that he cut the Serum Visions from this list. Let's move on, though. I don't want to get too wrapped up in this outcome deck, in this brand new Urza outcome, is what I'm going to call it. Let's move down to the deck that got 3rd, which was Scape Shift, Titan Shift, so that's nothing new, basically. Then we have Tron, good old Tron, making its way in the top 8 of a Modern Challenge as per usual. Then we have good old-fashioned Death Shadow, Grixis Death Shadow. Nothing too new about that list. And then we have another Urza deck here in 6th place. Then in 7th place, we have good old-fashioned Eldrazi Tron. And then in 8th place, believe it or not, we have Goblins. Yes, that's right. We're talking about Goblin Matron, Goblin Pile Driver, Goblin Ringleader. These cards, 8th place in a Modern Challenge. I mean, Modern Challenges are no joke either. Like, these are several hundred players playing in these Modern Challenges. So, and then just outside of top 8 in 9th, we had Vengevine deck that basically kind of a combination between Dredge and Hogak Vine. I mean, it's playing Carrion Feeders, it's playing Grave Crawlers, Hedron Crabs for the self-mill plan, Narcoamigos, Prize Amalgams, and Stitcher Supplier, and of course Vengevines are there too. Playing Glimpse the Unthinkable for the self-mill plan. This deck is very real. I've run into this a lot on Moto. It's very real. You definitely want to be packing some rest in pieces if you're still fighting the good fight of blue-white control. And Stoneblade's rough against this one. This is a rough matchup if you're still rocking the Stoneblade. They just amass such a board presence, and since most Stoneblade decks aren't playing Supreme Verdict, this deck just kind of runs over you. These graveyard-centric decks have always been a really rough matchup for blue-white control and blue-white Stoneblade. And then in 10th, there was traditional Dredge, which just abysmal matchup for control. And then we have Mardu Shadow in 11th, so that is definitely back on the menu for Modern. Death Shadow's always been a great matchup. We are pretty good at, one-for-oneing their removals, or one-for-oneing their Death Shadows. Mardu is a little bit more tricky because they do have tricks like Hex Parasite where they can eat down their entire life total, and then they can Temur Battle Rage us out of nowhere. So if you don't have that Path to Exile, you don't have that Wrath on time. Of course, they can just kill you. And then we have the 4-color Snow in 12th, which is, I mean, that deck's rough, right? They play Ice Fangs, drawing a bunch of cards. Astrolabe is a big issue for us just because they outdraw us, which is really rough because we want to be drawing all the cards, which is, again, why I suggest we play Urza, because you get to draw so many cards with the Paradoxical deck. It's insane. And then we have in 13th, we have Death Shadow. Jund Death Shadow, actually, which is pretty neat. And finally, in 14th place of the Modern Challenge, D. Pelsier. Sorry if I butchered that screen name. In 14th place, though, we do have traditional blue-white control. 3 Jaces, 2 Narsets, 1 Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, 3 Teferi, Time Raveler. That's right, 9 Planeswalkers. 9 Planeswalkers. Getting rid of the Vendilion Clicks. No other creatures other than Snapcaster Mage, playing 1 Oust, 2 Supreme Verdicts, 1 Timely Reinforcements, 3 Cryptics, 3 Force, 1 Logic Knot, 2 Mana Leak, 4 Opt, 4 Path, and 2 Spell Snares. Spell Snares still very strong in Modern. My one thing I would do different in this main deck, okay, and if you're going to play Control, right now, I really like this list. I really, really enjoy it. If you're going to be playing, braving the elements, if you will, in Modern, Oust, I understand it's great against burn because you can bounce your own Snapcaster Mages. It is 1 mana, so you can pick off early threats. I really like Winds of Abandon. There's no point that I've ever casted that spell for Overload and lost the game. It works very well with Teferi because you can instant speed it. And I actually one time instant speed overloaded it and was just like, it's insane. It's nuts. Trust me. Play Winds of Abandon. That card is insane. Take out the Oust. And if you think about it, after turn 2, Winds of Abandon is just better. Obviously, if you have Oust early in the game, turn 1. After turn 3, though, turn 3 and on, Winds of Abandon just has better upside. Obviously, you're going to pay an extra mana, but that upside of overloading is just so high. Let's take a look at their sideboard. 1 Supreme Verdict, 1 Baneslayer Angel, 1 Disdainful Stroke, 1 Dovin's Veto, 2 Stony Silence, 2 Timely Reinforcements, 2 Celestial Purge, 1 Disenchant, 2 Spell Queller, and 2 Surgicals. I am not a huge fan of Spell Queller. I know a lot of blue-white mages out there are huge on it right now. And, Francesco Amati, my teammate, my blue-white homie, I guess you could say, loves Spell Queller. Not huge on it. I don't think that's necessarily a threat that you want out of the board. Loving the Baneslayers, 2 Stony Silence. If these Urza decks continue to put up results, which I suspect they will, the SCG is next weekend. If you are playing in that SCG, you need to be packing at least 2 Stony Silences. I know it seems kind of weird because Hardened Scales isn't a deck, and really the only decks that are really you want to worry about is Tron and Urza. I really do think this Paradoxical deck is going to start taking a larger percentage of the metagame than it is currently, because obviously right now it's very low. No one really knows about it, but luckily you're listening to this podcast, so we're trying to be ahead of the curve, trying to see Modern, how it looks by next week, not currently. So Stony Silence as a 2 of, I love against the Urza decks, and specifically, it really shuts down. I mean, it shuts down Urza pretty well, but it just is backbreaking to the Paradoxical deck, because typically a lot of them nowadays, and I say nowadays like it's been a deck for a while, but it's been a deck for a couple of weeks, maybe, right? But it's already had a couple iterations already, and they're playing a couple of Mox Ambers. If you can get it down and get it before they can drop their Mox Opal, obviously they can play it on turn 1, but if you can stop that, it goes a long way. And of course, we do have the tools to just kill Urza before it can get too egregious. But yeah, moving on down the line, we've got Boggles, which is always a rough matchup for Control. They just suit up their hexproof boy and crush us. So that's not great. We've got more Dredge. We've got more Dredge. We've got green-white Eldrazi. So that deck's really sweet. That deck is actually really cool. I really like that deck with Stoneforge Mystic. I think that deck is very, very good. Then we got more Dredge. I mean, if you're not understanding Dredge, Urza, and this Paradoxical deck, and Tron are all just like the decks in this modern challenge. Dredge, not a good matchup. Tron is a fine matchup, has definitely gotten better over the last couple months of the printings of the 3-drop Planeswalkers, and of course Force Negation. I think a lot of blue-white Control players are pretty cocky when it comes to this matchup now, and I don't think that it's as good as people think. It's not as bad as it was, but I definitely don't think it's anywhere near what people are giving it credit for. Of course, there was a burn list. There's always a burn list, right? More Dredge, more of the Vengevine Hogak style deck. I put that in air quotes for those listening. And then a bunch of burn. And then we had, of course, you had to get in the Hardened Scales Affinity. They always got to creep in there, right? But yeah, I mean, this Modern Challenge, if it's any indication of what the format actually looks like, a lot of Dredge. A lot of Dredge. Some 5-0 lists I really wanted to talk about. One in particular. So LSV. Good old LSV. Luis Scott Vargas piloted to a 5-0 finish, of course. Paradoxical outcome. With Jace the Mind Sculptor. Hey, we like Jace the Mind Sculptor, don't we? We like casting Jace the Mind Sculptor. So instead of playing Teferi Time Ravelers and multiple Saheeli Sublime Artificers, he's decided to only play one Jace and one Saheeli, 3 Sais, 4 Urzas, 3 Serum Visions, 4 Paradoxical Outcomes. Aetherflux Reservoir was his kill. So you storm off and then you just kill him with Aetherflux Reservoir by tapping it and dealing him 50. That's pretty sweet. Main deck Pithing Needles are awesome. So I'm going to link in the show notes and in the description below the URLs to both the Modern Challenge that I'm referring to and the Modern Leagues that I'm talking about. And I want you all to tell me if it's a good time to be playing, turn 1 Celestial Colonnade past turn. Some of these decks, the power level right now, because of what Urza is allowed to do and what Dredge can do, I don't think it's our time. And now, I could be wrong, of course. I'm here. This podcast is to learn. We are here. I am here to not only try and help everyone understand the metagame, I want to try and understand it myself. So this, on a weekly basis, I get to look through all of the data and all of the 5-0 lists and all of the recent SCGs and Modern Challenges and Grand Prix and really dive in. And I got to be honest, this metagame currently is not a place where I want to be playing. I want to be able to cheat and win the game and have a finisher, right? Blue White Control has never been able to do that. Now, if you're trying to box people out with Teferi's Puzzle Box in Narset, as my teammate Adam Cohen has been preaching about, try that. That is a way to sidestep all of this degeneracy and do something degenerate yourself. So if you're going to play Stone Cold Control and not put in the Snapcaster, and not put in Stoneforge Mists, and not put in Stoneforge Mystics, please play Teferi's Puzzle Box, because that is a way that you can just shut down a lot of decks and basically have an I win card. So I definitely think if you're going to be playing those strategies, please be playing something that has an I win button. And the only real way to do that right now, I believe, is playing Teferi's Puzzle Box. All right, but to these other lists, these other 5-0 lists, there's a really spicy one here. QB Turtle, 15. Okay, took me a second. He's playing Delver of Secrets in Modern. 4 Delvers, 4 Gurmags, 4 Dreadhard Arcanists, and then a bunch of just Grixis good cards. So definitely dig Delver of Secrets. That was actually one of my first competitive decks way back during Innistrad Standards. So that deck is near and dear to my heart. Of course, we've got Jund. We've got some Jund. We've got some Devoted Druid combo. This is more of a traditional Devoted Druid deck. There is a list that my teammate Mickey Humphreys top 16 SCG Dallas with, Devoted Devastation. I am currently working on a YouTube video that's going to be all about that. So that's going to be a fun one too. We do have a blue-white Stoneblade deck here in a 5-0 by C. Manrock. He went 5-0, of course. 3 Jace, 2 Teferi, 3 Snapcasters, 2 Spellquellers, 4 Stoneforge Mystic, 1 Supreme Verdict, 2 Cryptic, 4 Force, 2 Mana Leak, 4 Opt, 4 Path, 3 Spell Snares, and then, of course, Batterskull, Sword of Feast and Famine. I like it. I like it a lot, and I love the 4 Force Negations. I know that seems like overkill, but trust me, in Stoneblade, you're going to need at least 3. I would please play 4. The card is just nuts. The card is insane. And Supreme Verdict main, I didn't like. He found success. Of course, we got to take these 5-0 lists with a grain of salt because they combined the competitive and the casual leagues. So I'm not a big fan of the Verdict. Here's something also that I really enjoy in Stoneblade. Gideon Ally of Zendikar. If you aren't on this tech yet, please play Gideon Ally of Zendikar. It is so good against Jund. It is so good against any deck that isn't trying to kill you on turn 4. Just amassing board, and of course you can equip your swords and then just beat face. And of course he's just a big old beat stick himself. So Gideon Ally of Zendikar in the board, I'm loving for Stoneblade. Very good stuff. Humans list, that's pretty sick. That is pretty sick. But yeah, I mean, basically what I'm seeing and what I know, Blue-White Control's not it right now, everybody. I really hate to say that, but Blue-White Control is not it currently. There was a Magic Card Market event, and boy howdy, was that event won by none other than Blue-White Control. Alex, what are you talking about? You're all over the place. Don't play it. It just won a tournament. Now, it was playing a couple of fun-ofs. I was playing a Shadow of Doubt, which, right? What year is it? What year is it? Is it 2013 all over again? So that deck was very sweet. I will link that deck in the description below. But basically, everybody, I'm begging you, don't play Blue White Control. I know it's crazy. This is the Control Freak podcast. Can't play it right now. Play Stoneblade if you want to stick to Jaces and to fairies and that kind of strategy. Play Stoneblade, please. It's not just me saying it either. There's a lot of very good Blue White Control mages right now. Stay away from Blue White Control. Even with the addition of Mystic Sanctuary and the shenanigans that you can do with the Cryptic Command where you put it into play and you return it, or you can, crack a fetch to get a counter spell or a path and put it back on top and opt to draw it. All these things are very sweet. But right now the metagame is in a place where I don't think it's good right now, and it pains me to say that, because I really want to sleeve up my Blue White Control deck for Indianapolis. I'm going to SCG Indianapolis. I don't think it's there right now. I think I'm probably going to be playing Paradoxical. If I were a betting man, I would be betting on that. But yeah, everybody, as you all know, I don't like to put fluff in my content. I don't like to drag a 30-minute episode into a 45-minute episode. So this week is kind of a quick episode, but I wanted to get it out there that currently, if you're gonna play a Hallowed Fountain deck, please play Stoneblade. Don't play Control. And I really do think right now the best blue-white deck in Modern. I know people are gonna get on me. If you disagree, though, hit me up on Twitter @LessAlex. Let's talk about it. If you might convince me otherwise, but I do think Paradoxical Outcome is the future of the Urza decks for sure. The power level is insane. Being able to draw 10 plus cards on your turn is nuts, So, but yeah, let me know on Twitter if you agree or if you disagree. If you're watching this on YouTube, comment in the comment section below. Let me know. But yeah, thanks to Solitary Pro for giving me the tools to put on an awesome podcast like this. If you dig it, make sure to head on over. If you dig the podcast, make sure to head on over to Apple Podcasts. Give me a 5-star review and say a couple of kind words. It really, really does go so far. You have no idea with the analytics and the rankings on the Apple Podcasts. It really does make a huge difference, and I appreciate anybody who's given me a 5-star review and gone on there and said kind words. It really does matter. It really does count. And if you dig the video, of course, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. But yeah, I am LessAlex. This is the Control Freak Podcast. Make sure to follow me on Twitter. And as always, Magic players, be kind to one another. Have a great night.